Okay, everyone, welcome to our next video in the series. Welcome back to Hexland. In this video, we'll be talking about some of the geographic criteria, and I'll get into explaining what some of that is here. So the geographic criteria, you may have noticed so far that the principles we've talked about, population equality and minority representation, those were based off of the actual population and demographic data. Geographic criteria are not based on population or demographic criteria. Instead, they're based on the actual spatial or geometric characteristics of the district. There are three types of geographic criteria that I'm going to talk about: contiguity, compactness, and convenience. These three criteria are related and sometimes are seen as similar, but they're distinct concepts that should not be confused. I have seen some folks confuse them, so I am going to spend some time really clarifying for folks the differences between them and showing different variations of maps so folks can get a really good, clear picture of the differences between them. So let's start with contiguity. Contiguity is a fairly easy one. Contiguity is required by the Minnesota Constitution, and I believe every state requires contiguity. Contiguity means a district is a single continuous unit. In other words, you ask yourself, is it possible to reach the other side of the district without leaving the district? So in this example of Hexland, we have two districts, a light green district and a dark green district. This is two districts, not three, two. You can see that the light green district is not contiguous because it's split into two separate pieces that do not touch. You cannot get from one end of the green district to the other end of the green district without traveling through the dark green district, without leaving the light green district. That's how you know it's not contiguous. So in this example, both the districts are contiguous. The dark green district is a single unit and the light green district is a single unit. However, you might notice that the light green district is a little bit of an odd shape. And that brings us to our next principle, which you also might be familiar with. Compactness is the next principle. Compactness is when all the parts of the districts are close together to each other. Now, compactness, when you're getting into the deep dive details of compactness, there's actually dozens of mathematical tests that you can use to test for compactness. But to put it in simple terms, I like to say that the most perfectly compact shape is a circle. Another fairly compact shape might be, a square is what some people think of. It's not long and drawn out and snakes around, so like a spiral, that's not compact. A weird long snake shape, that's not very compact. A star, that's not very compact because it goes in and out. But a circle is perfectly compact. Now, compactness, there's some confusion about compactness that I want to clear up. Compactness is not required by federal or state law. Again, let me repeat that. Compactness is not required by federal or state law. However, compactness is often used as a shorthand by courts to spot gerrymandering. So if a district is not compact, a court might ask what the justification is for that odd shape. And if there isn't a sufficient justification, or there's an illegal justification, like it was racial gerrymandering, then the court will decide that the district was gerrymandered. So again, compactness is not required by law, but if a district is not compact, then there needs to be a legal and sufficient justification for that strange shape. Okay, now that we've got that cleared up, you can see in this example of Hexland that the light green district is not compact. It kind of snakes around the green district in an odd way. So again, this itself is not illegal, but it does signify that the court and public, if they're watching the map drawing process, should scrutinize this district and ask why it's that strange shape. Why does it look like that? There may be a good reason. It might be because there's another principle at work here, and we'll get to some of those principles. One of those principles we've already seen that might be for this reason is maybe it's a slightly strange shape in order to account for population equality, or maybe it's a slightly strange shape to ensure accurate minority representation. So compactness might be working up against some of those other principles that might be at work. So the point is, if it's not compact, that means it might be gerrymandered, there might be something wrong with it, and you need to investigate the justification for that district's shape. So putting together compactness and contiguity, here's another district or another map of Hexland where both districts are relatively compact, still got some problems here, but more compact than that other one where it was like a big snake shape. This one's a little more compact, but you can see that the dark green district is not contiguous. You can't get from one side of the dark green district to the other side of the dark green district without leaving it and traveling it through the light green district. So this is not a contiguous district, and this map is no good. So to review, we've got a couple examples here. In the first example, that light green district is neither compact nor contiguous because it's not close together and it's not all one unit. In the second example, that dark green district and the light green district are both fairly compact, but the dark green district is not contiguous. And in this last example, both districts are contiguous, but the light green district is not compact. And that's not necessarily ideal. There needs to be a justification for that. Now, in this example, there's not a justification for that. So instead, I've drawn a map of Hexland where you have two compact and contiguous districts. So here's an example of a compact contiguous districts. Now, perfect compactness in the real world, so a district that's the shape of a circle or a square perfectly, is very, very impractical, very unlikely to happen. The goal is to have relatively compact districts. So they might look a little funky and have some jagged shapes and some jagged edges or something like that. So the goal is to have relative compactness. So again, contiguity is required. Compactness is a principle we use because we think it's good to have relatively compact districts, and a lack of compactness can suggest that something funky is going on. So let's talk about the next principle, and that's convenience. So convenience is a little bit different because a lot of states don't actually talk about convenience. It's something in Minnesota that's actually in our state constitution. Districts in Minnesota are required to be convenient. So remember compactness. Compactness asks whether it is possible to reach the other side of the district without leaving the district. Convenience, on the other hand, asks whether it is practicable to reach the other side of the district without leaving it. It focuses on how easy it is to travel throughout the district. So remember, there's a difference between possible and practicable. It is possible to take a helicopter to the grocery store, but not practicable. It is possible to crawl to work, but it's not practicable. So let me show you what some differences for convenience would be here. So in this example map of Hexland, we've got Hexland that is split and divided down through the middle by a large mountain range. Voters live at the base of the mountains, so there are populations in those districts, but there are no roads that cross over or through the mountain range. So really, the two sides of the island are split up and really don't have much contact with each other, because there's no way to travel between the two sides of the island. So I put together a 3D rendering of this map just so you could visualize it better. Little island, big set of mountains down the middle of it, no roads, no valleys, nothing. The two sides of the island are fairly separate. So here's an example of that version of Hexland with two districts. Now, you might remember this looks a little familiar because those districts are both compact and they're contiguous and they have equal populations, but they're not convenient. So because the mountain range splits each district into two halves and no road connects each half, voters cannot travel throughout the district easily. So you can't get from that city in the northwest side to that town in the northeast side because the mountain prevents you from really easily accessing it. Now, I want to be clear. It might be possible to get to the other side of the mountain. You could hike on foot, but that's not practicable. It's not practicable to travel that way. So they are contiguous because it is possible to get to the other side of the district, but it's not practicable. It's not easy to travel, so it's not convenient. Now here, we've got a different version of the map where we've drawn districts in a longer fashion. But it's much more practicable to travel within the districts because the mountains are not creating a boundary. So the voters can easily travel north-south within these districts, so they are convenient. They might be a little less compact, but remember, compactness is not required. Convenience is required under the Minnesota Constitution. So we've got some slightly less compact, but they're now convenient districts. So now I put together a different example where there's still some mountains in Hexland, and now they've actually built a highway through the center of the island. They've taken down some of those mountains and they've built a highway through the mountain. And so the two sides of the island are connected, and all the two cities and the two towns are connected. Pop quiz. Which map has districts that are more convenient? Now remember, the test for convenience is it practicable to travel throughout the district without leaving it? The answer is that the right-hand map is still more convenient. The reason for that is that the highway, the way the highway is created, you would have to leave the district, the southern district or the northern district, and go into the other district in order to reach the other side of the island, the west side or the east side. So if you were traveling from that city in the northwestern side, you would briefly slip over into the southern district where that red arrow was pointing in order to reach the town on the northeastern side. So you would have to leave the district. So it is more convenient than where the mountain is completely splitting the island in half, but it's not as convenient as the map on the right, where you do not have to leave the district at all in order to travel throughout the entire district and reach the more urban areas where most voters live. So travelers can use that highway to reach the urban areas and still never have to leave the district on the right side. So again, there's kind of levels of convenience as well. It still might be possible to travel through the areas where there's back roads, but a highway is much more convenient, and that's something you should keep in mind. So let's use an example to put all three of these geographic criteria together. So in this version of Hexland, all the green hexagons are where people live. There are two gray hexagons that are the mountains. Nobody lives in the mountains, not even at the base of the mountains. And there are no roads that go through or over the mountain. So the mountains create a barrier. The blue hexagons represent a bay, which also create a bit of a barrier. While it's possible to use a boat to cross the bay, it's not practicable for most people. And for that reason, Hexland built a bridge over the bay at the southwest corner of the island, which you can see here. So we need to divide Hexland into two districts here. You might be tempted to just split Hexland across the center or down the center like we've done in some of our previous maps, but that creates a problem. As you can see with this example, one district would be not convenient because the bay and the mountains create a barrier to travel. The same thing would happen if you try to split it up straight up and down as well. So in this example, you can see that the dark green hexagons are split off from the light green hexagons. And it might still be possible to get from the light green to the dark green by hiking through the mountains or by using a boat. It's not practicable. So this district is convenient and compact, or I'm sorry, it is contiguous and compact, but it's not convenient. And that is a problem. Remember, convenience is required by the Constitution. So instead, we create a slightly different map. So in this map, we've changed it so that one district includes the bridge and the other district doesn't require you to cross the bay or the mountains to get to all the places where people live. So the Western district is a little less compact. It's true. You know, it kind of bevels in where it meets the bay and then it stretches back out to the east when it gets to the northern side of the island. So it's not as compact, but it is convenient and it is contiguous because it's got this bridge that crosses the river so that people can get from both sides. This is important to remember as an example because redistricting is not a beauty contest. We're not looking for a perfectly pretty looking or beautiful district that is perfectly compact. We're looking for districts that will ensure that voters have easy access to representation and meet the values of other principles. So we need to, and this is also a reason to remember that compactness is not required because compactness can fall below some of these other principles that might need to take priority. So to review, contiguity, compactness, and so contiguity, compactness, and convenience are the three geographic principles, and contiguity and convenience are required by the Minnesota Constitution. Compactness is not required by law, but a lack of compactness can indicate possible gerrymandering. And so there needs to be a sufficient justification if there's a lack of compactness. And that justification can be things like minority representation, contiguity, convenience, or maybe some of the other principles we'll cover here shortly. All three of those criteria, those principles, are related, but they are distinct. A compact district is not necessarily the same as a contiguous district or a convenient district. Again, we showed you a couple examples where a district might be compact, but wasn't contiguous or convenient. So the main thing I want folks to remember about contiguity, compactness, and convenience is a lot of people, when they're thinking about redistricting, they only focus on compactness. And I want you to think beyond that. A pretty and compact district might look nice, but again, redistricting is not a beauty contest. We're looking to have districts that represent the principles that make it accessible for voters. To have representation. And so a compactness might not have bearing on whether or not the district is fair and based on those other principles. So keep that in mind. We're not just looking for a pretty district. We're looking for a district that actually meets the principles. And while we do hope that districts are compact, they might not always be as compact as possible because we're thinking about some of these other criteria in the process. So I hope everyone found this video to be useful and hope that cleared up some of the confusion between contiguity, compactness, and convenience. And I'll see you in our next video on principles.